Hello world, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher. And of course you are now tuned to the right number. Let me also welcome you to another of my video lecture presentations in the series titled The Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell. This lecture presentation is titled The Common Citizen's Dreadful Fear of the Black Force, the Black Police. And it will be followed immediately by another presentation which is titled The Natives' Dreadful Fear of the Black Caucasians. And at the end of these two presentations, I will resume the continuation of my response to the YouTube video titled, What Did Jesse Duplantis Say About Black People? Wherein I will continue to critique, decode, analyze, and share my perspectives on the images that are in his video. If this is the first time that you are watching any of my videos, I ask that you also watch some, if not all, of my other uploaded videos. And I'm sure that you will hear another perspective, and possibly you will find something different to talk about, or to think about, and of course to comment on. First, let me answer the question that some of you might be asking, which is, why is this presentation titled The Common Citizens and not just the Citizens' Dreadful Fear of the Black Force hyphen the police force? As you might have already known, that in the hierarchy of citizenry in the Western societies and possible societies the world over, that there is segregations. For example, there are status divisions or status segregations, class segregations, race segregations or divisions, social divisions, neighborhood divisions or segregations, etc. And by no means are all citizens, and I repeat that by no means are all citizens treated exactly the same. The image on your screen, or the image that I hope is on your computer monitor at this time, and the story and news report behind it is just one classic example that I can point to of how dangerous, potentially deadly, and unfortunate it is to be a citizen in North America that is profiled black. A citizen that is profiled as being a black man, and also profiled as being a black man, and at the same time a common citizen by police officers. I also ask that you Google and read this article for yourself, the associated article with this image for yourself. It is called Black Producer Charles Belk Blast U.S. Police for False Arrest by, and it is uploaded by Press TV. So I ask that you read the story behind this image. Now, with this and some of the most recent complaints, outcries, and upsurge of some of the most blatant and the most outrageous and almost unbelievable police brutalities outrageous, unconscionable, inhuman, and wild beast assaults by police officers on innocent citizens. Police officers' abuse of power. Police officers' vicious and most violent assaults on some of their accused suspects that are already secured, physically restrained, in handcuffs, and are in their custody. Outrageous, suspicious deaths of citizens in police officers' custody. Some of the most outrageous police officers' false charges and arrest of innocent people. Outrageous police officers' profiling and police officers' harassment of law-abiding citizens. Outrageous police officers' framing and planting of false evidence, including drugs and weapons on innocent victims. Outrageous accusations of racism and racist practices among some police officers. Police officers' shootings and fatal killings of innocent and unarmed civilians, especially those of my people. Those of my own brothers and sisters, both males and females, young and old. My people, the natural native earthly humans of high melanin and highly carbon skin, that the evil system and their administrators falsely, deceptively, and contemptuously called, named, and profile blacks, and all other outrageous police officers' misconduct, local and internationally. Some of these outrageous brutalities and extrajudicial murders and killings by the police officers, which are caught live on video, sometimes occurring in the presence of multiple witnesses, in the presence of cell phones, iPhones, cameras, you name it, and some of which are reported on the mass news media, and most of the unreported incidents that only surface on social media such as YouTube and Facebook, etc. Now, things have gotten so bad with police brutalities and the common citizens' fear of the black force, the police, has escalated to the point that even my little island of Jamaica has recently made international news headline after the arrest of a Jamaican police officer who was vacating in Canada for his alleged involvement in an alleged Jamaican police death squad that is responsible. This death squad, according to the news report or the news media, is responsible for the killings of over 40 civilians. And last but not least, not to mention my own personal encounter and experience with police officers, and having one quite recently look me straight in the eye and lie without a blink, without any form of natural native earthly human feelings and emotion. And it was as if he did not take a breath. He was just cold. Now all this got me seriously thinking and reasoning to myself and asking my ancestors the following questions. Why would some of these people that are called police officers be able to knowingly, consciously, and shoot and kill? Why would they be knowingly and consciously shooting and killing, or shoot and kill an innocent and unarmed citizen, the common citizens? And not only do they get away with it after they knowingly and consciously shoot and kill them, not only do they get away with it, but some are even commended by their peers. Some are even commended by the government and other organizations and community groups for doing what they call a great job, a great service to society. Why? Why are some of these people, if not most of these people, or if not all of these people that are called police officers, why are they so desperately cruel and wicked? For example, why would a police officer or some police officers knowingly and deliberately falsely detained, falsely arrest, and falsely charge an innocent citizen for a crime that he or she did not commit, and in the process of falsely charging and arresting, they harass, humiliate, physically, mentally, and verbally assault, and then fabricate evidence, ruining a citizen's life, reputation, record, and have him or her prosecuted and then sentenced to death, or possible sent to prison for very long periods of time, if not for the rest of his or her life. And after, and of course, away from his or her families and loved ones and friends. And then that officer, that police officer, would go on with his or her life, raising his or her family. That police officer would go on, even go to church or some other religious center or place of worship, praising his or her God, living the life of what is considered to be a model citizen in his or her community, and possibly doing the same thing many times over to many other citizens without any shame, without feeling any shame, or without even expressing the slightest guilt of conscience. Why are they like that? Why are they so robotically cold? Is it possible that some of these people, prior to becoming police officers, are genetically predisposed to these types of wicked behavior and evil activities? Or is it just because of the force that they later became charged and induced with, and the power that they have received from being charged by this force, the police? And as the saying goes, power corrupts. Or could it be a combination of both of these factors? Meaning, could it be that they are genetically disposition, compelled or coupled rather with and fueled by the power of the force, or the real culprit that caused them to be the way they are? And I continue to ask many more questions, such as, who or what are these people that are called the police? Why are they called the police? Who is a police? Who is a police officer? What is the police force? Who or what does the force or the police truly represent? Is it true that the police are here or there to serve and protect all citizens and civilians of its jurisdictions? Are police officers and civilians equal? And do they enjoy the same equal rights and privileges in and under the system's law? If so, then why are some people, and especially most of my people the world over, why are they so literally terrified and afraid of the police, the force? Why would some of my people rather choose to suffer physical, mental, sexual, and psychological abuses? Why would some rather live their lives in miseries and threats of physical death at the hands of some of their own people? Why would some rather die at the hands of some of their own people? Why would some of my own people rather suffer the loss of their loved ones and see all forms of violence committed against them, rather than to seek, rather than to call, or than to go to the police, the force, for help? rather than to be a witness for the police, or rather than to be even seen in public talking to a police officer or talking to police officers, let alone be seen giving them information. Is there factual and justifiable reasons for anyone, especially my people, we the natural native earthly humans, of high melanin skin, that the evil system and its administrators willfully and maliciously called black people? Is there any factual and justifiable reasons for us to be afraid of the police? For us to be afraid of this force? And why do I, the mystic philosopher, personally experience what I may best describe using this, my ancestors' very terrible, fearful, and dreadful slave masters, oppressors, and prosecutors, heirs and successors language, the English language? Why do I experience a spiritual breach of my mental and metaphysical space? Why do I experience a spiritual encroachment, a spiritual violation, a spiritual intrusion of my calm, my spiritual space? Why do I experience a toxic pollution of my placidity, as if something inauspicious and something ominous is lurking whenever, wherever, and however I spiritually sense the police or physically see a police officer? And whenever, wherever, and however I am confronted by police officers. In other words, why do I feel and experience the emotions of fear, the emotions of threat and terror, as if evil and the real devil is near? And the feelings and awareness that I can, the feelings and awareness that I could, may, or will be stopped, will be pulled over, will be harassed, illegally searched, assaulted, wrongly ticketed, falsely charged or arrested, and possible end up dead. And another statistics, an innocent victim of these people just being who and what they are, the police, the force. Why do I think, feel, and know that any or all of these things are possibilities if or when I encounter a police officer, or whenever I encounter the force? And in trying to reason and answer three of the first few questions, namely, who is a police? What is the police force? And who is a police officer? I quickly realized that I was asking the wrong questions, and that all my questions could not be answered correctly if I continued to ask the questions that way. Because I had soon learned that police is synonymous with force, that police and force means the same thing and are the same thing. In other words, the police is the same as saying the force. And you will no doubt see why very shortly. Therefore, the correct questions that I was told that I should be asking, and in the right order, are: 1, what is police? 2, what is force? 3, what is the police force? Meaning, is it a natural force? Is it a natural force of our mother nature and source? Therefore, a good force for us that are the natural native earthly humans? Or is it an unnatural force? Meaning, is it from and was made by mankind for mankind? 4, who is a police officer? And then, having answered those 4 questions correctly and in the right order, then I could go on to answering and gaining insights into the remaining questions. So, what is police? Now, I'm not ashamed or afraid to admit the following facts to anyone. Fact number one, that the English language is not my language and mother tongue. It is not my natural, native, earthly human language, nor is it my ancestors' language or mother tongue. Fact number two, I am not afraid or ashamed to admit to anyone and everyone that the English language was the language of some of my ancestors' very terrible, very fearful, very dreadful slave traders, slave masters, oppressors, and prosecutors, and that it is still the language of some of their heirs and successors, or real slave masters and oppressors today. In fact, the very word English means and is defined by the English dictionaries as of England, relating to England, or characteristic of the country, state, or people of England. Fact number three, I am not afraid or ashamed to admit to anyone and everyone that my ancestors, the victims of the European transatlantic slave trade, were not permitted to speak their own ancestral language and mother tongue, nor were they permitted to freely carry on their culture, customs, and practices, but that they were only taught a bastardized version of their slave masters' English language. And to this day, we, their descendants, are not taught the official English language, let alone taught how to decode it. Fact number four, I'm not afraid or ashamed to admit to anyone and everyone that I do not know my ancestors' very terrible, fearful, and dreadful slave traders, slave masters, oppressors, and prosecutors, heirs and successors' language, the English language, and that the closest that I think I can or may ever get to learning, knowing, and decoding it is by my frequent use and reference to its various English dictionaries. So in order to answer question one, what is police? My natural intelligence, or as a natural native earthly human, my natural intelligence directs me to the English dictionaries instead of simply allowing me to regurgitate what I have been taught over the years and what is commonly believed by my people and most of society today. So according to Oxford Canadian Dictionary of Current English, police is, and I quote, a force responsible for enforcing the law, maintaining public order, etc. Unquote. According to the free online dictionary called dictionary.com, police is, and I quote, the civil force of a national or local government responsible for prevention and detection of crime and the maintenance of public order. And two, of police force, police have the duty of maintaining law and order in or for an area or event, unquote. The first very important point that I would like you to note from these two first meanings and definitions as given by these two English dictionaries is that police is force and force is police. And by the end of this presentation, I hope that you will all deduce for yourself what kind of force it is, or what kind of police it really is. According to the law dictionary, featuring Black's Law Dictionary, free online legal dictionary, second edition, and I quote, police is the function of that branch of the administrative machinery of government which is charged with the prevention of public order and tranquility, the promotion of public health, safety, and morals, and the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes. Here I also, unquote, here I also ask that you first please pay very close attention to and also take note of what this law dictionary say that government is, and secondly, the role of police force is, or what the role of police force is in government, or the role that police or force plays in government. From this, we further learn that government is an administrative machinery with several branches, and that police, or more correctly, force, is only the function of one branch. Now, please note also that police is not the branch, but that it is only the function of the branch. In other words, government is one central administrative machinery that has many branches. The branch is the Ministry of Security, or the branch may be described as a Ministry of Security, which is made up of a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head or by the brain of the central administrative machinery, the government, with one, the prevention of public order, rather the preservation of public order and tranquility, and two, the promotion of the public health, safety, and morals, and three, it is charged with the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes. Now, let us examine these meanings and definitions of police from Black's Law Dictionary a bit closer, and by giving some possible practical examples of what it is and how it really works. A. Public order. Police is a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head or the brain of the central administrative machinery, which is the government, with the preservation of public order using force, meaning to ensure that all rules and regulations, bylaws, laws, statutes, and commands, etc., that are made by mankind, the system, the government, and some of which may include very intimate aspects of our daily lives that most of us might be in total ignorance of until if or when we are ever caught violating them. B. Public tranquility. Police is a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head of the central administrative machinery, the government, with the preservation of public tranquility, meaning it has the authority to use what it is, what it knows to do, what it does, and that is force in ensuring that tranquility, meaning peace, is maintained in the community, in the country, and eventually in the world. For example, not only would it be inconsiderate for us to behave and live our lives a certain way, but the government will not permit you to have, for example, after hours, loud parties and loud music playing, loud quarreling, fights and disturbing other people in a zoned residential area, etc., regardless of the fact that it is, or that it may be your own house, it may be your own apartment, your own music, and you might be feeling good. The police, or more correctly, or another word for police, the force, will not beg you or they will not come and beg you, but they will force you to turn off, or force you to turn down, or force you to go to bed, etc. 3. The promotion of public health. Police is a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority, and is commanded by the head of the central administrative machinery, the government, with the promotion of public health. Public health is defined by experts as an organized community effort aimed at prevention of disease and promotion of health. Now, exactly how the police are involved in its promotion, I am not sure. But one thing I am sure of is that however it is done using force. Or force is involved because police means force, and force is, and police is force. D. The promotion of public safety. Public safety. Police is a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head of the central administrative machinery, the government, to use what it knows, to use what it is, to use what it does, and that is force in promoting public safety. In other words, if there are some violent men or women, citizens, maybe using guns or other dangerous weapons to carry out illegal activities and putting other people's lives at risk, the police are authorized and permitted to use what it is and what it knows and what it does, and that is force, deadly force if necessary, in dealing with them while ensuring the safety of all the other citizens. E. The promotion of public morals. Police is a body of people that is charged, meaning it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head of the central administrative machinery, the government, with the promotion of public morals by using what it is, what it knows, and what it does, and that is force. Some examples that I can think of that this may mean or may be applicable are: 1, swearing and using what are considered derogatory languages or languages over the public airwaves; drunkenness in public; indecent exposure in public, or what is considered indecent exposure in public; prostitution in public or illegal public prostitution, and other forms of illegal sexual activities in public, etc. The police are empowered by the government, its boss, to use force and put an end to such behaviors and activities. F. Prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes. Again, police is a body of people that is charged, meaning that it is given the power and authority and is commanded by the head of the central administrative machinery, the government, with the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes using what they are and that which they know, and that is force. In other words, or at least from my understanding here, the police have the power and authority and the full backing of its masters, the government, to use police, meaning force, to use force, whatever amount of force it deems necessary, and prevent crimes, detect crimes, and to punish criminals. But I will have much more to say on this particular point a little bit later in this presentation. Another very important truth that I think I must share with you is that governments, and particularly political governments, however simple, complex, elaborate, sophisticated, and well-intentioned it or they may appear or appear on the surface, however they may appear to be, they are not natural, meaning they are not of our source and mother nature. All political governments, including the one political world government, is made by mankind under the inspiration of an unnatural force. And they are all influenced and governed by an unnatural force. And their only function, the only functions of government, their only functions, goals, and intentions are not to do us, the natural, native, earthly humans, and our fellow natural earthlings, any good. That's not what they are about. But instead, government, also called the system, and governments, which are just branches of the one world government. All governments are just a branch of the one central world government, but that we'll talk about later. And they are made by mankind. And what are their functions again? They are made to conquer, to control, to oppress, to exploit, to enslave, and to continue conquer, control, oppress, exploit, and enslave all of us that are the natural, native, earthly humans, and all of our fellow natural, native earthlings alike. That is what man-made governments, political governments, are all about. And finally, governments are made by mankind to deplete the earth of all her life's essence, that they and their evil minds called natural resources, and then to render our Mother Earth desolate, lifeless, barren, and bare. That's their functions, that's their intention, and that's exactly what they're doing. There is nothing in nature that is or that can be readily observed that is dangerously wicked, fearful, and destructive to nature, the earth, and all that is natural, as the government or governments that are made by mankind. Just think about it for a moment, and you too may see and agree why all governments, and particularly the political governments of the world, are unnatural. First, for those of us that have eyes to see and minds to observe, will affirm that there's nothing like it or them in nature. There's nothing like mankind made government in nature. I would like to remind you that the truth is not readily hidden from us, as some would like to have us believe. The truth is not hidden, but that it is right before our eyes, and especially in language. In the language that the system, meaning the government, use to conquer, govern, and control the world. But most of us, in fact, all of us, are just kept too busy by the said system, the governments, to even find time to decode their words and to understand their trickery. But that's another topic for another time. The word government is a compound word that is made up of two words, govern and meant. Govern means, or govern is defined, and is also defined as control, and meant upon very careful analysis and decoding, you will see, or you may see, that it really means mind, or at the very least, it refers to our mind, which itself, by definition, is the seat of our faculty of consciousness, of our awareness and thoughts. Politics, by extension, its adjective, political, is defined as being the art or the science of government. Therefore, governments, and particularly political governments, are the art and science of mind control of people or of the people. Or let me say it another way. The very body of humankind, known as the government, in order to effectively manage, in order to effectively subdue and control its people, its subjects, its captives, its commoners, also known as its citizens, etc., it must and it does employ the art and the science of mind control. And mind control is not natural. Meaning, mind control is not of our mother and source, Mother Nature. Mind control is anti-nature. Mind control is made by mankind for the benefits of mankind selfishness, mankind hunger for power, mankind dominance, mankind profits and their greed, and it is evil. Mind control is evil. Another very important fact that I think I should point out here is the fact that governments, or the government, is mechanical. It is a mankind-made system. In other words, it is a system that is made or created by mankind. Government is a machine. It is an administrative machinery. Therefore, it has no natural native earthly human feelings, compassion, and no natural human or natural native earthly human emotions. It is devoid, completely devoid of natural native earthly humans' feelings, emotions, compassion, empathy, sympathy, or that which is commonly called love, etc. In other words, it is stone cold mechanical. Government, and by extension governments, are stone cold mechanical, and its heart, and by extension their hearts, are made of stone. Government equal mind control is anti-nature. It is unnatural, because unlike mankind, the creatures that were themselves created by their very terrible, fearful, and dreadful creator, male God, we, the natural native earthly humans, are each given our own individual body, our own individual brain, our own individual mind, and our own individual faculty of consciousness, faculty of awareness and thoughts by our source and mother, Mother Nature. And why? For the sole purpose of first minding our own individual business, to coexist in symbiotic relationships with all other natural native earthly humans and fellow natural native earthlings. And not a mind. We were not given a mind by our source, like that of the stone cold creatures like governments, or a mind like that of some computer software programming and computer virus to use force, to employ force, and to try and control others like robots, cyborgs, automatons, sheep, and slaver for our own selfish greed, dominance, power, and money, etc., and control, etc. Sorry for that interruption. And because the central administrative machinery, also known as the government or the central government, is made by mankind, Please note that the central government, the mastermind government, and all others below it are not made by us, the natural native earthly humans, but they are made by mankind, the creatures, the stone cold hearted creatures that were themselves made or created by their stone cold hearted creator, God and programmer. So, because it is made by mankind, it is anti nature, it is unnatural, and it is evil. And the only thing it knows and is programmed by its source to do is to use force to accomplish its every means. It's any and every means. Therefore, in order for the preservation of public order and tranquility, the promotion of public health, safety, and morals, and the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes to be executed or to be carried out in societies that are made, governed, and controlled by mankind, it employs the only thing that it knows, which is force, also called police. Please note also that prior to the creation and invasion of mankind and their governments of this our home and planet, Mother Earth, we, the natural native earthly humans, lived and very happily coexisted in symbiotic relationship with all other fellow native earthlings for thousands and possible millions of years. And that it is mankind, the creatures, the interplanetary invaders and their god of force that invaded our space and our territory and come mess things up for us. And they are still here messing things up for all the earth. Our Mother Earth is mourning all because of mankind and their governments. Question 2. What is force? Now, let us look at some of the meanings and definitions of the word force as given by mankind's dictionary, coupled with our own practical day-to-day life experiences. And let us see if we can find more proof as to why it is synonymous with police. And hopefully, if you are a natural native earthly human and are highly blessed with the abundance of melanin, you will see one more reason why you too have experienced and possible you are still experiencing the paralysis and the deadly fear, the terror of the black police, the black force. Force, according to dictionary.com, is defined, and I quote, strength or energy as an attribute of physical action or movement. 2, coercion or compulsion, especially with the use of threat, of violence. 3, force again, make a way through or into by physical strength, break open by force. And force, number 4, force is to make someone do something against their will. Unquote. According to the Law Dictionary, featuring Black's Law Dictionary, free online legal dictionary, 2nd edition, force is, and I quote, power dynamically considered that is in motion or in action, constraining power, compulsion, strength directed to an end. And usually the word occurs in such connections as to show that unlawful or wrongful action is meant. Unquote. Here are a few words that are synonymous with force and police. Coercion, which is the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Constraint, duress, oppression, enforcement, harassment, intimidation, threats, arm twisting, and pressure. These are all words that are synonymous with force and police. So from that, from all that I have read thus far and said and quoted from the various sources, we can now logically, rationally, factually, historically, racially, experientially, and otherwise show and prove the rational argument and the logical equation which states that police is equal to force. That force is equal to coercion. That coercion is equal to constraint. That constraint is equal to duress. That duress is equal to oppression. That oppression is equal to enforcement. That enforcement is equal to threats. That threats is equal to arm twisting. That arm twisting is equal to pressure. That pressure is equal to government. That government is equal to anti-nature. Anti-nature is equal to unnatural. Unnatural is equal to black. And black is equal to evil. From my perspective, and as a natural, native, earthly human, my mother and source, Mother Nature, is not force or police. I repeat, my mother and source, Mother Nature, is not force or police. My mother, who we that are her own, most affectionately and endearingly called Mother Nature, simply is Mother Nature. And that is all we, the natural, native, earthly humans that are her own, can think we know. And that is all we can think that there is for us to know, period. That which mankind, the creatures, in their gross ignorance and arrogance, called the forces of nature, are not really forces. But they, mankind, really don't know that. And because they are mankind, meaning creatures, they cannot know that. And because they are mankind, meaning they are a creation, that is what they conceive them to be. Forces. And the evidence has thus far shown and proven that all that mankind know is force. Mankind, they are some very forceful creatures. For example, the phenomena that mankind called the four fundamental forces of nature, which are the electromagnetic force or electromagnetism, the strong force, the weak force, and the force of gravity, by their very definitions are not forces. For common sense alone, coupled with our own personal and practical life experiences, have shown and have also proven that forces are destructive. Forces break things apart. Forces disunite things. Mankind-made forces, or more correctly, mankind-made forces are evil. And to be even more precise, all forces that are made by mankind, the creatures, are evil. And for those of us, the natural, native, earthly humans, that take time out, or that would take time out to observe the workings of mankind, the workings of the creatures, will affirm that all they do is to use force and break up, use force and conquer, to use force and control, to use force and dominate, to use force and subdue, to use force and subjugate, to use force and humiliate. All mankind does is to use force and enslave, oppress, to use force and colonize, to use force and exploit, and to use force and destroy people, places, and things, etc. And it does not matter which branch or which division of the one evil force it is, be it the demolition force, be it the Marine Force, be it the Police Force, be it the Arms Force, the Delta Force, the Secret Force, the Air Force, the Security Force, the Atomic Force, the Nuclear Force, the Spy Force, or the High Altitude Research Project Force known as HARP, you name it, or you name them, the creatures got it, or it got them. And they use them, and they will use it. They're mankind-made forces and evil forces to accomplish their any and their every means and their any and their every evil intentions. And according to mankind, if the phenomena which they called forces weren't present in our universe, all the matter in the cosmos would drift apart and float away. In other words, the universe as we think we know it would not exist without these things that mankind in their gross ignorance and arrogance call forces. So here they are admitting that the things they call forces of nature are the same things that are holding the universe together. Remember that from their very own dictionaries, meanings and definitions, coupled with our own personal and practical life experiences, we know that force is not good. We know that force break apart things. We know that force is destructive. We know that force causes people to fear. We know that force is terror and that force terrorizes people. We know that force is deadly and dangerous. We know that force is wicked. We know that force is oppressive. We know that force is evil, etc. And yet, in the same breath, they are telling us that we need force in order to have peace and order. The fact is that they are not talking about our Mother Nature's peace and our Mother Nature's order. Because their very own Adamic race history and holy books say that the way of peace. They know that. But much more, I'll have much more to say on that point at some other time. Forces that are made by mankind are unnatural. All unnatural forces are anti-nature. And all forces that are anti-nature are evil forces. Period. So what is police? Or what are the police? The answer is that it is the force that is made by mankind, and therefore it is unnatural, anti-nature, and that which is anti-nature is evil, an evil force. And from my perspective, that which is evil is also unjust. Therefore, it is also an unjust force. So for us, the natural native earthly humans of high melanin and carbon skin, especially those of us that are of high melanin and carbon skin, that the unjust force has profiled, has named, called, and blacklisted as black. For us to be expecting good, for us to be expecting fairness, for us to be expecting to be treated with dignity and respect, and for us to be expecting to receive justice from mankind, and a system and force that is made by mankind, for us to be expecting good fairness and to be treated with dignity, respect, and justice from forces that are unnatural, anti-nature, and that which is evil and unjust is not at all wise. It can't happen and it won't happen. But more on that on this point shortly. Question 3. What is the police force? Well, if police is force and force is police, then common sense should confirm that police force is a double amount of force. At least that is just one of my interpretation. By the way. Well, according to one Google search that I have done, the police force is, and I quote, an organized body of police officers responsible for a country, district, or town, unquote. According to another web dictionary, namely Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, the police force is, and I quote, a body of trained officers entrusted by a government with maintenance of public peace and order, enforcement of laws, and prevention and detection of crime, unquote. Now, that which is called police and the force, in reality, are invisible to the ordinary natural native earthly human physical eyes or physical sense that is called sight. Be it the so-called forces of nature or the forces of mankind that is made by mankind, the evil force, and by extension the evil forces. They are all invisible to the ordinary eyes. All forces, and this is for your information, all forces exist first on the metaphysical plane, also called the spiritual realm, the mental plane, the higher dimension, other densities or higher density, etc. In other words, just as how one cannot literally see the wind with one's bare physical eyes, but one can see, feel, hear, and smell, and even taste the presence and effects of the wind with that which is called our physical senses. The same is true for the evil force, and by extension, the evil forces. It or they too cannot be readily seen with our bare, our regular natural native earthly human eyesight. However, it or their presence and effects can be, will be, and are seen, felt, heard, smelled, and even be tasted by our physical senses. Now, the big question is this: how do we know, and how can we know the evil force, and by extension the evil forces? How do we know the evil forces that exist among us, the natural native earthly humans? And the answer is that it is by their fruits that we can and shall know them. Meaning, it is by their actions, the way we know the evil forces, and the evil force and the evil forces among us. It is by their actions. It is by their deeds. It is by their lies and deceptions. It is by their manifestations, their behavior. It is by their alien, animalistic attitude. That is how we know the evil forces and the ones that are among us. It is by their destructiveness. It is by their warring characteristics. It is by their cockiness. It is by their crookedness. It is by their greed. It is by their greed for more and more and more money. It is by their hunger and thirst for power. Power to control and power to have control over our mother nature. It is by their hatred, resentment, and submission of our natural native earthly hue woman. It is by their hatred, resentment, and submission of the feminine principle of our mother nature. That's how we know the evil among us. It is by their anti-nature. It is by their anti-all that which is natural. And among all other things, it is by their hatred, resentment, jealousy, enslavement, and subjugation of us, the natural native earthly humans, that they maliciously, contemptuously, and otherwise called, named, and labeled black people. That is how we know the real and true evil forces, the real and true evil ones, and the real and true devils that are among us. Now, and as you shall no doubt shortly see, the evil force, and by extension the evil forces, are, as most people are familiar with Satan and his legions of devils, are not of or from our mother and source, Mother Nature. And his, Satan, the evil force, his purpose is to try by using what it is and using what it knows and what it does, and only that which it knows and what it is, of course, which is force and evil force, and to use it and to manipulate, dominate, conquer, govern, and control, to subdue, to subjugate and rule over, to lord over, to master over, to harm, to destroy, and manifest all manner of itself, which is to manifest all manner of evil upon our mother and our source, Mother Nature, and all that is natural, in order to deceive us, in order to pretend to be, in order to claim to be so-called creator and God, in order to claim worship, reverence, submission, praise, and loyalty of service, slavery from us, the natural, native, earthly human, and all that which are of our Mother Nature. Now, in order for Satan, the evil force, and his legions of devils, the evil forces, to manifest itself and themselves upon this our planet and Mother Earth, and among us, the natural, native, earthly human, they needed some physical human bodies to work in, work with, and to work through. And so he, Satan, the evil force, the alienic force, the head cough, meaning the head chief of force, or the head cop, C-O-P, meaning the head chief of police, through deception, coercion, threats, and manipulation, etc., and through whatever evil force he deemed necessary, he has hand-picked, mind-picked, brain-picked, and race-picked a group of our natural, native, earthly humans. And by using his knowledge and science, his Satan's knowledge and science of human mind, of our human mind, our human body, spirit, and soul, he has mentally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually, genetically manipulated and so-called recreated them, meaning his Satan hand-picked people. He has recreated them into his own image and likeness and called them his chosen people, his elected people, meaning his elites and his chosen body of people through which he, Satan, the evil force, and his host of other devils, evil forces, can work in and through upon the earth in order that his devils, Satan's will be done on earth as it is being done on earth right now. And what is his will? It is to have dominion and control over Mother Earth. It is to have dominion and control over us, the natural, native, earthly human and humans, and all of our fellow earthlings. It's to have dominion and control over all of our other fellow native, natural, native earthlings. And the police, which again, police means force, or force means police. The police, the force, is just one arm of his many armies of evil forces. Now, for those of you that may be laughing at this, and not that it matters to me, but I would ask that you take some time out and do some search on the subject of transhumanism. Transhumanism. Do some search and readings on human genetic manipulations. Look at what are being done to your foods through what is known as GMO, genetically modified organism, etc. Just do some research and you will see the workings of this evil force. It won't matter to you if you are not a natural. If you are a man-made, if you are a creation, then this won't mean nothing to you. You just see it as science and as exploration and as growth and as progress and as advancement and technology and all these fancy terms. But for your information, none of you so-called scientists, none can make Mother Nature better. Right? But that's another subject. But I ask that you research these things. Now, a word of warning here. If you are a natural native earthly human, and especially if you are highly melaninated or carbon skin, please not be willfully or knowingly deceived. Please be not be deceived. In other words, please do not allow yourselves to be deceived. If or when you may see Satan the devil or any of his representatives, his administrators and his force and forces of evil doing good, or if you may perceive them to be doing good, let me warn you, please be not deceived, because that does not make him, Satan, or his evil forces and representatives, and that does not make him or make his forces a force for good. In other words, it does whatever you see them do, it doesn't make them good. It only makes them look good. So when you see devils doing good, that it may appears to be doing good, or you may receive some things that you consider to be good from Satan and his evil forces, that doesn't make them good. It only makes them look good. If you pay attention, you too will no doubt notice how Satan, his governments, his elites, and all his representatives, you will notice how they love to look good. They will be all over the place telling you how much money they're donating to do this and how they're helping this and what they're doing, trying to look good, but that does not make them good. The important thing to Satan is, and his people, is their so-called good reputation. In fact, one of the most important things to Satan and his evil forces, his people, is their so-called good reputation and their so-called good name. Even their own book, you will read, if you read in the Christian Holy Book, it tells you that Satan will disguise himself as angel of light. He loves a good name. And that's why they maliciously call us the natural people of the earth. They label us black, and some of them call themselves white, the opposite of us. But it's by their fruit that you shall know them. If or when Satan or his forces does something good, or something that may be perceived as good, even if they save your life by pulling you from a burning fire, save you from drowning in a lake or whatever, even if they take a bullet for you and in the process appear to give their life for you, please be not deceived, but know thou this, that you can never know and that you will never know or understand the real and true motives of Satan and his devils. And all you need to bear in mind at all times is that a devil is a devil is a devil is a devil from now unto eternity and beyond. So again, what is the police force? Answer, as I have mentioned and explained earlier, that force is equal to police, and police is equal to force, and that force is made by mankind and humankind. That force is unnatural. That force is anti-nature. That force is anti-life. That force is evil. And that force is a very deadly and dangerous thing. With that in mind, then, from my perspective, the police force is a selected body or a selected group of people that is trained, empowered with a natural force and named by the government to use force, which is equal to police or the same as police, and whatever force equal police it deems necessary, and enforce its, meaning the government's laws. And please note, not to enforce Mother Nature's law, but to enforce the government's laws, rules, regulations in order to keep the people, in order to keep its people, the citizens, the civilians, the commoners, etc., meaning the government subject. The citizens are the government subjects and inferiors under heavy manners in order to maintain what they perceive as public peace, public order, in order to prevent crime, in order to investigate crime and to punish people who commit crimes against the government. And please, the police only punish you when you commit crime against the government, because as you may learn, not all crimes against each other are really crimes against the state. Crimes against each other, but not against the state or the government. All crimes are not illegal. I learned this by reading these things. So when you really do a crime, when the police is punishing you because you violate their master's rule. But more on that some other time. Who or what is a police officer? Now that we know the meaning and definitions of police, and that it is force, and unnatural force, let us look at the meanings and definitions of an officer in order that we may correctly answer the question, who is a police officer? Well, according to dictionary.com, an officer is, and I quote, a person who holds a position or rank or authority in the army, in the navy, the air force, or any similar organization, especially one who holds a commission to a member of a police department or a constable, unquote. According to the Law Dictionary featuring Black's Law Dictionary, free online legal dictionary, the second edition, an officer is, and I quote, the incumbent of an office, one who is lawfully invested with an office, one who is charged by a superior power, and particularly by government, with the power and duty of exercising certain functions, unquote. So from these two definitions, including the Black's Law Dictionary, we can affirm that the word officer is directly or indirectly relating to government, and an officer is a highly ranked government representative. According to the Law Dictionary featuring Black's Law Dictionary again, Black's Law Free Online Legal Dictionary, the second edition, a police officer, so first we look at the word officer, now we're looking at the word a police officer, is, and I quote, a person who is an officer of the law enforcement team employed by the country, town, municipality, or state, unquote. From my perspective, by the meanings, definitions, observation, and the governmental power that are invested, bestowed, and induced in them, a police officer is a force officer, meaning a police officer is a force person and a person of force. A police officer is a forceful officer, meaning a police officer is a forceful person. A police officer is an officer of force and a person that is full of force. A police officer is a powerful officer, meaning a police officer is a very powerful person. Please note that by definition, and to the best of my knowledge and interpretation of the English dictionaries and the Law Dictionary, a police officer is not a peace officer. A police officer is not an officer of peace. And please let me further explain why in much more details. From my perspective, the peace that I know, the peace that I am from, the peace that I think about, my Mother Nature's peace, the peace that we, the natural native earthly human, once had and enjoyed among ourselves prior to the invasion of our home and planet Earth by the mankind, the humankind, the peace that is and of our mother and source, Mother Nature, the peace that the mankind do not know, the mankind cannot know and cannot have, the peace that the natural native peoples of the earth are once again hoping and looking forward to. Its restoration cannot be had by mankind or through or by force equal police. It cannot come about, and it will not come about by war or weapons of war or by mankind and humankind governments. For that which mankind do not know and cannot know is that force breeds more force. Police breeds more police. Evil breeds more evil. War is terror and terror is war. They don't know that. War breeds more war and terror breeds more terror. And that you cannot have war on terror or terror and war and expect to have our Mother Nature's peace. So with this knowledge and understanding, we the natural native earthly humans know that to us a police officer is not a peace officer, but a mankind, the humankind. But to the mankind or to mankind and to the humankind, they may well be peace officers because their idea or their concept, their mindset of peace and understanding of peace is not the same as ours. It's not the same as ours who are the natural native earthly human. For when a police officer goes or comes, he goes and comes not trained or powered up by the government for peace, but for confrontation, meaning for war. He or she goes or comes prepared for war or for conflict. And the very force to which he or she belongs is called the arms force. And that is just one reason why he or she is not a civilian, but is considered a member of the arms force. A police or arms forces, a police officer is a law enforcer. Let me say it more correctly. A police officer is a government law enforcer. And he or she is only about the government law enforcement and enforcing the government's law. Not nature's law, not our source's law. And enforcement means, and I quote, enforcement, the act of compelling observance of or compliance with a law, rule, or obligation. Let me repeat. Enforcement means the act of compelling observance of or compliance with a law, rule, or obligation, unquote. Now, please note that I did not say that a police officer is a nature's or a natural law enforcer. There's a big difference. There will be no comparison. But that he or she is, a police officer, is a government law enforcer, meaning he or she is a humankind law enforcer. Our mother and source, Mother Nature, does not, and I repeat, does not need any of her own, let alone mankind or humankind, to enforce or to force her laws on anyone or on anything. That's a huge if. I wish people could see and understand what I'm talking about here. A police officer is not a peace officer, meaning a police officer is not an officer of peace or the blessed peacemaker as some may think or wish them to be. I put it to you that if you are a natural native earthly human of highly melanin skin, and you think or believe that a police officer is a peace officer, then you are definitely not wise, if not out of your mind. However, if or when there is chaos or disorder and disturbance within the government system, and order of things, the police officers will most certainly bring about tranquility and possible total silence by only what they know and what they are trained to do and use and what they are possessed with, and that is force. A police officer is not a love officer or a loving officer. A police officer is not there to tell or to teach you, the citizen, how to love your wife, your spouse, your children, or your family, or how to love your neighbors as yourself. You better know that before the police officer comes, or the police officers come. And they won't give you a chance to start learning how to love or to start loving them once you have already broken their law. Or by breaking the law by hurting them. A police officer is not a counselor. A police officer is there. A police officer is not there to counsel you on how not to break the law. That's not his or her job. His or her job is to punish you for breaking the law, not to counsel you on how not to break the law. They don't care about that. Their job is to ensure that you receive punishment for breaking it. The government's law, not nature's law, the government's law. A police officer is not a gentle officer, a kind officer. For police means force, and force means police. And force does not mean or is gentle as kind. Force does not mean gentle. It does not mean kind. And neither is police. Neither is police. Force and police is the same thing. Doesn't mean gentle or kind. So you must always expect. Once you encounter, always expect. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. And regardless of how some police officers may look in their appearance or their appearances, please know thou this, that a police officer is not a weak or wimpy officer. If or when you experience gentleness, if or when you may experience gentleness, kindness, or any other forms of our natural native earthly human attributes and virtuous qualities emanating from a police officer, you must know that it is not policing that is being manifested, but that it may be part of his or her natural native earthly humanity that is bleeding through his or her regimental law enforcement training, power, and position, or that they may be abiding by some of their police code of conduct. A police officer is a force and knows only force. And he or she is all about force. And from my perspective, that is one of the reasons why I think that is a very terrible, a very fearful and dreadful thing to be stopped, to be pulled over, to be investigated, to be confronted in any way by a police officer, or at any time by a police officer. That is why it is a very dreadful, fearful, terrible thing having to encounter a police officer being questioned, harassed, interrogated, or to fall in the hands of a police officer for whatever reasons. I remember seeing 3 Caucasian police officers taking down a young suspect, a young boy of maybe age 14, maximum 16 years of age, outside a mall here in Ontario, Canada, a couple of years ago. And what makes it even more sad and memorable, the vivid image of it is still in my mind, was the fact that he was a young boy of my own people. Could be my son. My people that the system contemptuously, maliciously, and very deceptively profiled, labeled, named, called, and blacklisted as black people, who is who it was alleged may have stolen something inside the mall. And the way two of those huge muscular mankind force officers body slammed that little fellow into the concrete, and then like a wrestling match released all their own body weight on him, which in my estimation was at least 375 to 400 pounds, while one of the force officers had his knees in the young boy's spine area, and while the other ensured with force that the young boy's head and face was held firmly against the concrete pavement. And the third force officer wrestled or wrist the helpless young fellow's hands from his side and put on the handcuff. It was from that day on I became even more assured that police force and some that are called police officers are not natural, and nor do they belong to or from my mother and source, Mother Nature. By watching some of their rodeo shows on television, I have seen them handled and treated their rodeo animals, let alone their house pets, with respect and dignity. But that none of that was exercised the day I saw them took down that young man at that city mall. When you have any form of encounter with a police officer, and he or she did not employ or exercise any of his force on you, and especially if you are a natural native earthly human with high melanin or carbon skin, and a descendant of the victims of the European transatlantic slave trade, that is automatically blacklisted or listed as black by them, then as soon as you get home or to your destination, I suggest that you should burn some incense or pour some libation as an act of acknowledgement, thanksgiving, and appreciation to your ancestors for their protection. Those of our ancestors who are also invisible to most of us. They are the ones that may have just delivered you alive from the potent force or the potential lethal force of the force officer. So what have we learned from these three definitions thus far? Well, I've learned that if my interpretation of the English word is correct, if the meanings and definitions as are hereby given by the English dictionaries are correct, and if my readings and interpretations of the two English dictionaries and the Black Law dictionaries are correct, then I can now say with much more knowledge that police is force. A force responsible for enforcing the law, maintaining public order. A force, it is a branch of one mighty and central force called the government. It is the government's civil force, a force of a national or local government that is responsible for the prevention and detection of crime and the maintenance of public order. C, it's one of the government's force divisions or force branches that has the duty of maintaining law and order in or for an area or event. D, police is the function of that branch of the administrative machinery of government which is charged with the preservation of public order and tranquility, the promotion of public health, safety and morals, and the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes. E, and when you see one police officer, you see all police officers, meaning you see force, the entire force, because he or she is representative of the force. Now please let us take another but much closer look at definition D that I have just mentioned above. And as the direct quote from the Black's Law Dictionary. And if my interpretation of this is in any wise correct, and I most certainly think it is, then what it is saying is that police officers are not only charged with the preservation of public order and tranquility by using what they are, force, the promotion of public health, safety, and morals by using what they are, which is force, and the prevention, detection, and punishment of crimes by using what they are, which is force. Therefore, if this is correct, then my interpretation and understanding is that a police officer or police officers are charged with the powers to punish you or to punish us for crimes. In other words, he or she could well be your judge, jury, prosecutor, and executioner. And if you happen to make it to see a judge after your encounter or after you have encountered a police officer, then consider yourself lucky or blessed. In fact, blessed by your ancestors. And if a police officer thinks that you are committing a crime, or that you have committed a crime, or that you are guilty of a crime, or guilty of committing a crime, then he or she has the powers and authority to punish you, and possibly punish you quite severely. And that is just one or just another reason that we, the natural native earthly humans, have a dreadful fear of the black force, the black police. Just another slight observation that I would also like to mention here, and it is that maybe with the exception of a prosecutor, a police officer is even far more powerful than any of the most learned, eloquent, and scholarly lawyers, especially when dealing with the public, the ordinary common citizens. With the exception of maybe a prosecutor or maybe a citizen's arrest, maybe, I have never seen or heard of lawyers that are invested with the powers of arrest, or lawyers acting as sworn law enforcement officers, or any lawyers going around arresting criminals, or anyone, let alone lawyers arresting police officers. I have never seen a lawyer going around armed with guns, weapons that can cause serious mass destruction, and ready for war and confrontation like a police officer. Therefore, it would seem that in all practicality, lawyers can only run their mouths in court, or in a courtroom, or in courtrooms, or on televisions. But it is police officers that determine if you will indeed make it to court. From my perspective, this definition D from the Black's Law Dictionary also directly answers at least two of the first few questions that I have asked earlier, and at the beginning of this presentation, and which is one, who or what are these people that are called the police? And two, why are they called the police? And I think the answer is that, with the exception of the very small group of humankind, the very small group of elite humankind families, that is the real physical and practical earthly government of the world. Government meaning the real mental and physical controllers. Government of the world. They are the very small group of elite humankind families that are known as the elites, the super rich, the royals, the monarchs, the oligarchs, the elite ruling class, the real untouchables, the chosen people, the Illuminati, etc., that are elected, hand-picked, mind-picked, brain-picked, and race-picked, and empowered with force by the head cop, the head chief of force, also known as the head cop, the head chief of police, and the head chief of world governments, namely Satan, the devil, to sit atop his religio-political pyramid twin system and ruled, govern and enslave the people of the world with, through and by what it is, force. The police is the most powerful, the most fearful, and the most dreadful and dangerous group of people anywhere and everywhere on this planet Earth. And from my perspective, another reason, and one of the reasons why they are called the police is because they, meaning the men and women of the police force, they are the real true dons, the real true bad men, the real bad women, and the real and true earthly force to reckon with. All other so-called don, kingpins, queenpins, and bad men and women run and hide from the force, the police. And that is just another reason why we, the natural native earthly human, have a dreadful fear of the black force, the black police. Now, this is a very important point that I'm about to make. And I'm sure a lot of you might not get it. But for the record, I have to say it anyhow. Please note that nowhere in any of the meanings and definitions of the word police, the word officer and the phrase police officers are even in the history of the creation of what is now known as the modern police force and the defined functions of police and police officers that I have personally searched, seen, and read in both the English dictionaries, the English etymology dictionary, English law dictionaries, online, and the Police Act. Thus far, does it explicitly states, word for word, that I could copy and paste or quote verbatim any of the following statements. 1. Police officers are employees of the citizens of a country, of a government, country, state, or community. 2. Police officers are hired and empowered by the citizens of a government, country, state, or community, etc., to serve them. 3. Police is to serve and protect, or police is to protect and serve. 4. Officer is to serve and protect, or officer is to protect and serve. 5. Police officers are to serve and protect, or police officers are to protect and serve. 6. The job of police officers is to serve and protect, or the job of police officers is to protect and serve the citizens of a government, country, state, or community, etc. 7. The functions of police is to serve and protect, or to protect and serve the citizens of a society. 8. The primary functions of police and its officers are to serve and protect citizens of a society, government, country, state, or community, etc. In fact, coincident or not, a few mornings ago while preparing my notes for this presentation, I heard one of my favorite Jamaican morning time TV show hosts, a young woman whose wit, intelligence, outspokenness, and passion for justice for all her Jamaican citizens and people the world over, a young woman who I greatly admire, made a statement while she was passionately commenting on what was the preliminary results of a U.S. pathologist's autopsy on the body of 31-year-old Mario Dean, a fellow Jamaican who was most shamefully, most savagely, and brutally beaten while in Jamaican police custody, allegedly for the possession of a marijuana, or as we say in Jamaica, ganja spliff, and who 3 days or so later succumbed to his brutal injuries. The cause of death, according to the pathologist, was multiple impact blows to his head and brain and compression to his neck, which he the pathologist determined a homicide. In her comments, she said, and I quote, "When you think of police, one of the primary functions of police is to protect citizens of a society," unquote. So here we can see that the notion, the idea, the statement and the belief that the primary function of, or one of the primary functions of the police, of the force, is to serve and protect, or to protect and serve all, serve us all citizens of society. We see that this is one that is very common among all peoples and nations of the earth. But from my perspective, it is also one that is barely understood, if at all understood. Or it is one that is most misunderstood. One of the most misunderstood or misinterpreted statement by most people, if not by all, most all people. So the big question, where do these notions, sayings, these ideas, statements, and beliefs that, when summarized, states and is interpreted and understood by so many to mean that the primary function of police, the force, is to protect and serve citizens? Where do they come from? And could it be that as a result of this very misunderstood or misinterpreted and possible misleading notation or notion, some people, especially some of my people, are expecting far too much for themselves of the police, the force? So here I would like to spend a little bit more time answering this question as thorough as possible. And while at it, I shall answer one of my earlier questions as well. Question 8, which is it true that the police are here or there to serve and protect all citizens and civilians of its jurisdiction? First, I honestly think that its main source is the government. I think it comes from the government, the mind controllers. And I also think that it has been subtly inculcated into the minds of the common people, the citizens, and has now become a common belief, a common thinking, a common ideology, but not a knowing that is based on fact, that is based on correct reasoning, evaluation, observation, experience, or on their day-to-day reality. And consequently, it is now a common expectation of most people, the public, and the general population, especially those that are completely ignorant, completely hypnotized to the covert workings and operations of the system, the government, the real and true mind controllers in their daily lives. It has become the common expectation that the police, the force, the police officers are here or there to serve and protect them. Secondly, it may be a concept that is derived through some form of legal reasoning, or it may be implied by some legal mental gymnastics, or it may have been interpreted as such by some legal analysis on radio or television. But to the best of my knowledge thus far, it is not written in English dictionaries or the English law dictionaries or in any country or state constitution that I am aware of as such, or at the very least, it is not written there in plain simple language that a lay person like myself to see and understand, or could see and understand, that the primary function of police, or one of the primary functions of police, is to protect and serve a society, citizens of a society, or the police force or the police officers are here or there to serve and protect all the citizens of its jurisdictions. For example, let me make a quick comment on the statement of one of my favorite Jamaican morning time TV show hosts I just mentioned earlier. And I quote, "When you think of police, one of the primary functions of police is to protect citizens of a society," unquote. From my humble perspective, observation, experience, and analytical mind, this statement sounds true. And on the surface, it's quite believable. And also, I do understand where she's coming from and why we all, at least at one time, hold that thought to be true. And also why many people today do hold it to be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. However, if or when it, along with other factors, are more correctly examined and considered, others like myself may find that it is not completely true, or if at all true. In fact, one may even discover that it is only a common belief that the system, the government, the true mind controllers that I have mentioned earlier, would have us all, their subjects, hold to be true. But in reality, it is not what we may think or what we are thinking. Let us look at the statement again. When you think of police, one of the primary functions of police is to protect citizens of a society, unquote. The truth is that in reality, meaning in our day-to-day life and survival, when most people think of police, especially if you are living in North America, and especially if you are named, labeled, called, profiled, or blacklisted by the system, by the police, the force, and the society as black, or even worse, male black, if you are listed as male black, the thoughts of police, or when you are forced to think of police, the thoughts are not at all pleasant. Neither are our thoughts those of protection or safety. Not at all. They are more likely to be thoughts of terror, abuse, injustice, brutality, false imprisonment, harassment, intimidation, false arrest, violation, or violence upon our person, and lethal and deadly force being unleashed on us. But at this point, that is slightly beside the point I'm making. And for the record, I also think that one of the answers that is given by dictionary.com to the question, what are the four main functions of local police? I think it is inaccurate. The answer given is inaccurate, if not misleading. And the answer given is, and I quote, the fourth main function of the local police is maintaining order and or peacekeeping, and to serve the people of the community, to gather information and to enforce the law, or enforce the laws, unquote. Now, please note that I did not say that I disagree with the meanings and definitions of the word police that are given by the dictionary or by dictionary.com, but that I disagree with one of the answers that is given to the question, what are the four main functions of local police? Because all the meanings and definitions that meaning dictionary.com gives, are consistent with all other English dictionaries that I have referenced thus far and have quoted in this presentation. In fact, let me quote for you the meaning and definitions for police from dictionary.com. And I quote, 1. Also called police force, an organized civil force for maintaining order, preventing and detecting crime, and enforcing laws. 2. Used with a plural verb, members of such a force. 3. The regulation, police again, the regulation and control of a community, especially for the maintenance of public order, safety, morals, etc. 4. The department of the government concerned with this, especially with the maintenance of order. 5. Any body of people officially maintained or employed to keep order, enforce regulations, etc. And 6. People who seek to regulate a specified activity, practice, etc. Unquote. Now, please note that nothing is explicitly said here in this dictionary.com's own dictionary that police is to serve the people of the community, or police means to serve the people of the community, or that police function, or that the primary function of police is to serve the people of the community, or that one of the main functions of police is to serve the people of the community. That is just something or someone's interpretation or belief. And even though I must admit that there are some truths to it, but it is mostly misunderstood or misinterpreted. So first, let us clarify what are the functions of police. Please note, functions of the police, not according to our own common beliefs, but according to the Police Act, for example. Well, functions of police according to preservearticles.com, a website called preservearticles.com, and I quote, "The Police Act in 1861, the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, and other relevant acts describe the functions and powers of the police officer as follows. 1. Executing all orders and warrants lawfully issued to the police officer by any competent authority. 2. Collecting and communicating intelligence affecting the public peace to the competent authority. 3. Preventing the commission of offenses and public nuisance. 4. Detecting and bringing offenders to justice and apprehending all persons whom the police officer is legally authorized to apprehend. 5. Entering and inspecting any drinking shop, gaming house, or other places of resort of loose and disorderly characters. 6. Laying any information before a magistrate and applying for a summons, warrant, search warrant, or such other legal processes against any person committing offense. 7. Taking charge of unclaimed property and disposing it subject to the magistrate order. 8. Taking appropriate steps on occurrence of fire. 9. Regulating public assemblies and processions and licensing of the same. 10. Stopping any procession that violates the conditions of a license. 11. Keeping order in public roads. Keeping order in public roads, streets, thoroughfares, ghats, landing spaces, and all other places of public resort, and preventing obstructions on the occasions of assemblies and processions on the public roads or in any other places. 12. Taking into custody any person without a warrant who commits crimes like slaughtering cattle, furious riding, throwing dirt into the street, being found drunk or riotous, obstructing passengers, etc. 13. Keeping general diary in the police station and recording therein all complaints and charges, preferred the names of all persons arrested, the names of complainants, the offenses charged against them, the weapons or property that shall have been taken from their possession or otherwise, and the names of the witnesses who shall have been examined. 14. Producing the arrested person to the nearest magistrate within a period of 24 hours from the time of arrest. 15. Dispersing any unlawful assembly. 16. Supplying the copy of the first information report, FIR, to the complainant the complainant, and the copy of the police report and other documents to the accused. 17. Arresting the person who has committed cognizable offenses. 18. After investigation of the case, preparing the charge sheet and sending it to the court for trial within a stipulated period. 19. Even in the case where the police officer is not satisfied about the commission of an offense, sending the final report to the court for its approval. And 20. Releasing the accused who has committed petty offenses on personal requirement, PR, bond, unquote. Again, please note that nothing is hereby said that police are here or there to serve the people of the community. In fact, according to one online etymology dictionary, the first force to be called police force was the Marine Force in England, and it was not instituted to serve and protect the people of the community. And I quote, the first force so named in England was the Marine Police, set up in 1798 to protect merchandise at the port of London, unquote. From my perspective and understanding, the police are not the servants of the citizens or the community. Common sense, let alone our own personal and practical experience, should affirm that it is the citizens or the subjects who have to obey and answer to the police. And if we should compare the master versus slave, or the authority dominant versus the subordinate, as it relates to police versus citizens, as it relates to governments versus subjects, then reasonable and honest minds must agree that the police is the master and the citizens are the slaves. That the government is the masters and the subjects are the slave. Now, other than dictionary.com, the closest that I have come to finding what I consider to be this erroneous or misleading idea written somewhere, that police are here to serve, are there to serve and protect the citizens of its jurisdictions, is to discover on the same online dictionary that it is a slogan and not a direct function or law. According to dictionary.com, in answering the question, who wrote the slogan to serve and protect, and I quote, in 1955, the LAPD formed a contest to give its police academy a motto. Officer Joseph S. Dorbeck submitted the winning entry, to protect and to serve. In 1963, the city voted to adopt the slogan for the LAPD, and so adorn its headquarters building and its radio cars with the slogan. Subsequently, many police departments nationwide have incorporated the venerable sayings into their own police oaths of office. However, many inverted the order of the words protect and serve, unquote. As you shall no doubt shortly see, or at the very least by the end of this presentation, and as I shall show, that the police, the force, are here or there to protect and serve the state, to protect or serve the government, the crown, and not the subjects, the commoners, the civilians, or citizens, etc. Or at the very least, not the way how most people are led to think and believe. So, is it true that the police are here or there to serve and protect all citizens and civilians of its jurisdiction? I have already pointed out the fact that the phrase to serve and protect, and to protect and to serve are slogans, and I have also pointed out the fact that the primary functions of the police the force, are not to serve and protect the citizens of a society, country, or state, as most people think and are led to believe in their minds, but that it is a misleading and misinterpreted idea. In other words, it is not exactly what it sounds like or what it appears to be in reality. So in order to shed more light on this question, quote, is it true that the police are here or there to serve and protect all citizens and civilians of a jurisdiction? And especially since there is so much misunderstanding, or there are so much misunderstandings about it and misinterpretations of it, the first and most basic question we must answer, clarify, and possibly agree upon is, who is a citizen? Or what are the meanings and definitions of the word citizen? Well, according to the Winston Canadian Dictionary for Schools, a citizen is, and I quote, a member of a state or nation who enjoys political rights and privileges and gives his allegiance in return to the government. 2. A citizen is a civilian distinguished from a soldier, policeman, etc. Unquote. According to the Law Dictionary, featuring Black's Law Dictionary, Free Online Legal Dictionary, 2nd edition, a citizen is, and I quote, in general, a member of a free city or jurial society, civitas, possessing all the rights and privileges which can be enjoyed by any person under its constitution and government, and subject to the corresponding duties, unquote. Now, having read these meanings and definitions, and considering many other factors and things, including my own personal life experiences as well, from my perspective, a citizen is, or citizens are, the property, possessions, and subjects and the servants or slaves of a government or state. In other words, the government or the state literally and practically owns and possesses all its citizens as property, subjects, possessions, slaves, servants, sheep, etc. of their masters. The government, they are entitled to benefit from all the rights and privileges that their owners, the government or the state, etc., grants or gives them, or allow them to have under what it called the Constitution. As subjects, they are obligated by law to do whatever is required of them by their owners and masters, the governments or the state. So let me emphasize this fact, that it is the government or the state that grants its subjects, its slaves, its commoners, its property, its possession, its citizens, whatever rights and privileges it deems, it meaning the government deems under its constitution, and definitely it is not the other way around. Remember, the government is the master and the citizens are the slaves. The government is at the top and the citizens are at the bottom. So for those of us that are citizens and think that they are free and are even boasting about their perceived freedom, are definitely not wise. And neither can they be freed mentally or otherwise if they continue to think that way. It was Harriet Tubman who once said, and I quote, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves," unquote. In fact, the only true freedom that they truly have under the government's and masters' constitution is the freedom to think to themselves that they are free. Please note also that the police, the force, or the members of the police force are not citizens by any of the definitions given here. Or if you prefer, let me say it another way. In the hierarchy of the system, the police, the force, or the members of the police force are not your ordinary or your common citizens by any of the definitions given here. Members of the police force and the armed force, etc., are ranked way, way, way above the citizens, subjects, and slaves or slaves. Yes, they too are servants or slaves, which is just another word. Servants is just another word for slaves, as I have indicated before. And yes, they are in the service, and they are called servicemen and servicewomen to the government. But they are not your ordinary citizens, subjects, or slaves. A police officer is a government officer. He or she is part of the government. According to some information I gather here online, one of the requirements of a person becoming a police officer is that he or she must take an oath of office. And in Canada, as an example, and as it may well be in most, if not all of the Commonwealth countries, including Jamaica, it goes like this. And if it is not like this, it's something similar. And I quote, I, the person's name, let's say John Doe, swear or do swear or do solemnly affirm that I will be, one, faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and prevent all offenses against the persons and properties of Her Majesty's subjects. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially perform my duties as police officer. Unquote. With this understanding, one must conclude that the police, the force, are here and there to first serve and protect their masters, which are the government, from the citizens, to protect the government from the government subjects and the slaves using force. In other words, their first priority and obligation, or the first priority and obligation of police, is to serve and protect their masters, the government, from the citizens, the subjects, and the slaves using force. That's why they are called force. I dare any citizen, any ordinary citizen, for example, of the United States, to get close to their president without his permission, and without that citizen being properly vetted, or any other citizen getting close to any other head of states without being vetted and without that head of state permission. In fact, the first order of duty for the police is to ensure that the slaves, the subjects, or citizens, same thing, no matter whatever name we call it, the first order of business is to ensure that slaves, citizens, or subjects do not get too close to their masters, to the government. This practically, if you open your eyes and look around, you'll see. Yes, I will agree that the citizens of a government, a country or a state, and a community, etc., do receive protection and service that are provided by police. But the protection and service that they received are really, for the lack of a better word, they are really secondary, if not much lower level effects of policing. Please allow me to explain using the following analogy. From my perspective, the government is likened to a shepherd, if not a real sheep. We, the citizens, are likened to sheep, if not their real sheep. The most valuable asset the shepherd has is his sheep. For without sheep, he or she is not a shepherd. And the most valuable assets the government has are its citizens, its subjects. For without them, there is no real government. The more healthy, governable, productive, and more well-behaved sheep the shepherd has in or on his farm is the wealthier and more powerful he or she is. The more healthy, well organized, civilized, orderly, productive, and well behaved the subjects, the slaves, or citizens of a country are, the wealthier and more powerful the government will be. The police, the black force, can be likened to sheepdogs, if not the real sheepdogs. The sheepdog's job is to protect the sheep from going astray, from harming itself, from potential dangers, and also to punish the sheep if or when it breaks the shepherd's rules. Example: the sheepdog watches over the sheep when they sleep at night, when they are in the fields grazing during the day. They guard and protect the sheep from thieves, lions, wolves, wildfires, and all other predators that will attack or that may attack, kill, maim, or eat them. And they also ensure that all sheep are kept in line and that none goes astray in any way or causes or encourages other sheep to go astray. The sheepdogs watches over the sheep and ensure that they walk in the straight and narrow path and that they do not stray from the rules of the shepherd. The sheepdog is there to discipline and forcefully to take out any sheep that will misbehave. With the sheepdogs around, the sheep are led to feel safe and secure. And as a result of a job well done, the sheepdog is rewarded very well by its masters, the shepherd. Not only is it rewarded, it is protected too. But what the poor, stupid, and unfortunate sheep do not know, and is totally unaware of, is that they are the property, the possession of the sheepdog's master, the shepherd. And that the reason why they are being treated, guarded, and protected so nicely is not that they are equal to the sheepdog in value, rank, or status, or equal to the value, rank, and status of their owners, the shepherd, but it is because they are valuable as livestock. They are valuable as food, as wool for clothing, as wealth and power for the sheepdog's master, the shepherd. Please know thou this, that the shepherd will and can offer up at any time any one of his sheep as a sacrifice, as a feast, as a celebration, whatever, if it will bring him, the shepherd, more fame, more wealth, more money, more prestige, good name, and power, etc. On the other hand, the police, the black force, or the police officer's job is to protect the citizens, the subjects, the slaves from going astray, from harming themselves or from harming each other, from potential danger or dangers, and to punish the citizens if or when they break the government's rules or the government's law. The police watches over the citizens, the subjects, and ensure that they walk in the straight and narrow path and that they do not stray from the rules, laws, or of the master, the government. The police are constantly there to discipline and to take out any citizen or subject who misbehaves. And as a result, the police are rewarded very well by their master, the government. Reward also means protected. With the police around, the citizens, the subjects, the sheep, feels safe and secure. Example, the police watches over the citizens when they are asleep at night, when they are in the fields playing, or on the job during the day. They guard and protect the citizens from robbers, rapists, criminals, and all other predators that will or may attack, steal, kill, or maim them. And they also ensure that all citizens are kept in line and that none goes astray in any way or causes or encourages other citizens to go astray with them. But what the poor and unfortunate dumbed down sheeply citizens don't know and are totally unaware of is the fact that they are the property, subjects, and slaves of their police masters and owners, the government, and that the only reason why they are being treated so nicely and are enjoying the rights and privileges afforded them by their owners is because they are the most valuable livestock, assets, and resources to their owners and masters, the government. They are the real and true productive slaves of the system, also called human resources. So please be not deceived. Be not deceived anymore. Believing that the black force, the police, are the employees and servants of the citizens, let alone those of us that are blacklisted, black, and the common citizens. In fact, just ask yourself this question. If the police are employees of us, the citizens, the common citizens, then how can the police serve and protect their employee, or rather their employer, if the employers are literally afraid of them? And if they make their employers afraid of them, it just doesn't make logical or practical sense. So now, it should be clear, if not completely clear, to all who have listened to this lecture this far, that in reality the only thing that the police, the force, are here are there to serve the citizen, the slaves, the subjects, the commoners, etc. are summons, traffic tickets, parking tickets, warnings, and sometimes some very forceful blows. And that is just one more reason why I too have experienced the paralysis, the dreadful fear of the black police, the black force, and that of black Caucasians as well. So from my perspective, for me to continue or to go on living the rest of my life, thinking and believe or trusting that the police are there to serve and protect me, would not be wise. Now, and my people are being destroyed. And that is why a lot of my people the world over, and especially my people that are here in the West, are destroyed and are being destroyed because of their lack of knowledge of this basic truth. For if they know this fact, then they would not be out there in the streets offering themselves up like sheep to the slaughter, claiming to be protesting the force. And the forces that are made by mankind, meaning they would not be protesting against the police, even though such great injustice has been done to us by them. They would not be out there in the streets like sheep to the slaughter, claiming to be demonstrating against the system and the government. Take, for example, one of the most recent incidents that has gained a lot of public attention the world over, of what I now think is simply the police being the police, or the force being the force. And that is the fatal killing and shooting and killing of the unarmed teenager Michael Brown by a true real black Caucasian police officer, namely Darren Wilson. That occurred on April 9th, 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri. Again, from my perspective, it's just another fatal police shooting, if not just another public execution. Public police execution. Public police murder of one of our highly melanin skinned youths. that the system and its black police, its black force, along with its black media, deceptively, maliciously, and contemptuously profiled, labeled, called, named, and blacklisted as being a black man. And in turn, they proudly and deceptively called the killer, if not the cold-blooded murderer, a white man. Now, this has caused a lot of protests, demonstration, and outcries for transparency in the investigation that the black police officer and that the black police officer should be brought to justice. Now, on the surface, protests and demonstrations, as most people believe they know, or they know them, that seems reasonably justifiable. It's so-called freedom of speech, it's freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and that it is democracy in a free society that is at work. And the citizens are claiming that it is their constitutional rights of peaceful assembly and right to protest, etc. The most important word here is not right or rights, but it is the word constitutional, meaning it is the government, the shepherd, the owner and master, the king, the queens, the lords and shepherd and the shepherd and the lord of the sheep, the subjects, the commoners, the slaves, the lord of the subjects, the sheep, the commoners, the slaves, the citizens, etc. It is the lords, the government that grant or that have mercy or pity on them with these by giving them these basic rights. And the police, the force, or the sheepdogs that are the government's hands, feet, eyes, and ears that watch over the sheep on behalf of their masters or their master, the government. And as my late mother used to say, and I quote, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." And just to quote from an article on the American Civil Liberties Union website, the ACLU, and I quote, "The right to join with fellow citizens in protest or peaceful assembly is critical to a functioning democracy. But it is also unfortunately true that governments and police can violate this right through the use of mass arrest, illegal use of force, criminalization of protest, and other means intended to thwart free public expression," unquote. My people are destroyed and are being destroyed because of lack of knowledge. For if they knew the system, the power and workings of its force or forces, and its coded trichology language, the English language, and if they were able to decode the true meanings and definitions that are enveloped in the compound words protest, demonstrate, and demonstration, and compare them with their reality, then they would have definitely not be following many of their so-called leaders and all kinds of activists, some of whom are directly or indirectly benefiting from the system or are being paid by the very system that they are claiming to be protesting and demonstrating against, to rev up, being paid to rev up protests and demonstrations, and maybe even to incite violence or to cause others to incite violence among demonstrators and provoke disturbances, thereby giving the system and its forces much more reason to act against them. And if many of my people knew this truth, then they would not be consciously or unconsciously offering up themselves as target practice, as punching bags, and to be beaten by the forces dogs, to be hosed down, to be tear gassed. They will not be offering themselves and putting themselves in positions where they could be harassed and arrested and charged, and may have to end up spending money that they don't already have, hiring lawyers, some of which are even promoting these marches to try and free themselves, etc. For a careful analysis and decoding of the word demonstrate combined with the reality, might reveal that it is a demon or a devil's strategy to demonstrate. Therefore, demonstration is not a good thing for us, the natural, native, earthly humans, to be involved in. Demon strategy is for demons. And the word pro means for or in favor of something. And the word test means to challenge, to pressure, to test or to put on trial, to find out the limits or the breaking point of something. And from my perspective, to naively challenge, pressure, or to put on trial, to find out the limits or breaking points of that which is unnatural, that which is anti-nature, and that which is evil, is also not wise. For they can, and they will unleash their brute force on you. My people that are always protesting the police and the system would have known that if they continue doing the same thing over and over again and is expecting things to change in their favor, then they are insane, meaning they are suffering from the disease called insanity. For example, if every time a police officer or a black Caucasian, for that matter, do us great injustice, if every time a police officer or a black Caucasian causes us or any of our people bodily harm and other injuries by unleashing their lethal and deadly force through unleashing their black force by killing, maiming, or murdering one of our innocent elders, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, or youths. If every time this happens, we call upon and welcome the same old system preachers and religious leaders, the same old systems politicians, lawyers, civil rights leaders, the same old so-called black power revolutionaries, leaders, and activists, the same old systems news media broadcasters, same old systems TV legal analysts, TV legal experts and journalists, the same old so-called community leaders, etc. Every time this happens, we welcome them, we call them to come and do their same old things, which were and which are reciting the same old speeches, same old sermons, the same old prayers that they have been praying and doing for decades, if not for hundreds of years, to our ancestors, slave masters, oppressors and prosecutors, heirs and successors, gods, saviors and lords, etc. Some are even prostrating themselves like spineless worms before our oppressors and adversaries, God's saviors and lords, and praising them and begging, pleading with them for justice. If every time the unnatural force and forces cause evil to befall us, we call the same old Jesse Jacksons and the same old Al Sharptons and the same old NAACP and some same old others to come lead prayers and to come and lead marches while singing the same old song, we shall overcome someday. The same old ineffective chant, no justice, no peace. The same old, same old, same old, same old. And if by now they haven't realized, they can't realize, if by now they can't realize that they did not work in the past, it is not working today. And if the past is in any wise indicative of that which we call the future, it will most definitely not work in the future. Then if they can't realize that, then they are very hopeless and pathetic. what we need, what all my people need to do, and what you must do, my people. And by the way, there are only few of us, or few people like myself, that know and that will and that can tell you this truth that you're about to hear, because the rest of my people are too wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in the system's religions, in the system gods, in the system's Jesuses and Lords, etc. So what you all need, you all my people need to do, and what you must do, and especially those of us that are the descendants of the direct victims of the European transatlantic slave trade, what you need to do and what you must do in order to start seeing some real, if practical and effective changes in your lives and in our lives, because we all one, and start as the natural and status, in our status as the natural native earthly human, is to completely forsake, completely reject, completely disregard, and totally mentally and physically abandon all our ancestors, slave traders, slave masters, all our ancestors, persecutors and oppressors, the black Caucasians. We have to abandon their religions, their belief system, their God and gods, lords, saviors, masters, prophets, preachers, evangelists, missionaries, and religious leaders, etc., which are the same religions, gods, lords, saviors, and prophets, etc., that their heirs and successors, the black Caucasians today, in being true to their character, in being true to their heritage, in being true to their tradition, in being true to their customs, and above all, in being true to their inheritance, they are practicing and preaching the faith of their fathers while using it to continue hypnotize us and mentally enslave us today. My people must wake up and realize the fact that our ancestors, slave masters, heirs, and successors, the black Caucasians today, are still practicing the faith of their fathers, the faith of their fathers and us today. 2, we must go back to our mother and source, Mother Nature, and start learning and practicing the natural ways of our ancestors. For to think that our enemies, our haters, our oppressors, religions, gods, lords, saviors, etc., and their systems and their evil and unnatural forces are helping us, or to think that they will help us, or that they are here or there to deliver us from themselves, is surely not wise. It doesn't make no sense. In fact, we and our youths will only continue to die like fools at the hands of our enemies, using their forces, and at our own hands, using our enemies' weapons, if we continue to reject, abandon, and forsake our ancestors, our roots, and who and what we are by nature, and of nature, the true natural native earthly humans. If we were to start accepting who and what we are and start acknowledging our ancestors and our natural source, and start learning and practicing our true nature's essence, our true naturality and spirituality, then and only then will we begin to see our enemies fall like dead flies, up on and by their own forces. If all my people, or if just some of my people that I have watched protesting in the streets of Ferguson, as an example, and elsewhere across the United States, along with those that I saw on CNN in churches, waving lit candles and singing hallelujah and praising our ancestors, slave masters, and their current system and oppressors' God, if they were calling upon, if my people were calling upon our ancestors and invoking the spirits of our ancestors and the killer cop, the murderer cop, and his family. Just like how they have no mercy on us when they unleash their dogs on us. Then that killer cop, or those killer cops, would be running, especially that one in Ferguson, would be running around in the streets of Ferguson naked as the day he was born, begging and pleading for someone to take his life. If we were only to reconnect with our source and do the right thing and stop looking to the source of our enemy and the forces of our enemies to be our defense and saviors. But because my people are deceived into praying to the killer cops, God, then he is pretty safe and well protected first by his God, then by his government, then by his colleagues, then by his friends, then by his families, and of course by his well-wishers. My people need to be reconnected with our source and stop looking to our enemies' forces and sources to be our deliverance savior and for justice, because we cannot expect justice from an unjust, evil force or source. It's stupid to be thinking that way. We need to own up to who we are and look back to from whence we came and call upon our ancestors and invoke the spirit of our ancestors and our enemies, and then watch what will be done. Remember, Einstein said that insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So if you keep praying to your enemy God, calling upon your enemy God's name, looking to the wicked system that have oppressed you and is continuing to oppress you for deliverance, for salvation, for status, for justice, you keep doing it over 400 years and nothing happened in your favor, and you continue to do it, and you're damn insane. This is another perspective. Just take another thought and think who and what we are, and look to our source, to our ancestors, to Mother Nature, from whence we came, who we are, and what we are, for justice, not to the enemy's source. If anything come from there, well, fine, but don't depend on it. Now, this is the end of this my video presentation lecture titled "The Common Citizen's Dreadful Fear of the Black Force, the Black Police." I hope that you at the very least find it thought-provoking. Your thoughts and comments are welcome. Please join me in my soon-to-be upload lecture presentation titled "The Natives' Dreadful Fear of the Black Caucasians." I am the Mystic Philosopher, and again I thank you for listening.